This week in games, E3 has been canceled in 2024 and 2025. Square Enix wants to remake Final Fantasy VI, and we break down the Nintendo Direct. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 153. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Fuck. Every week with this man, just the most monotone, just like unamused. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Yeah, this is something you want to listen to for the next hour. What's going on?
Well, let's be quite honest. When you say hi to someone, you just say, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, how you doing?" Or something along those lines.
But like, give them some energy, you know. Be like, "Hey, man, how you living? What's going on? What's popping? How you doing?" You know, all these things.
I'm breaking down the barriers of the internet and talking to them like a real person. It's very realist.
Oh, sure, yeah, because you know the thing about the internet is the most realistic things are the things that thrive.
Surface level stuff, right?
Right. Connor, how have you been this week, my friend?
Busy.
As always.
Car troubles once again. I'm having to not be able to drive my car, otherwise it'll die. My engine will overheat, so I'm limited on driving.
Well, that blows.
Other than that, I get to play Final Fantasy 16, which is what I've been doing these past couple days.
Indeed. In fact, you'll be doing it so much that next week we will have our review for Final Fantasy 16 up on the channel. That will be a part of next week's Two Penny Gamescast, but it'll also be broken out on youtube.com/@2pennygames for your viewing pleasure. But what is this? This is the Two Penny Gamescast. Each week at Monday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. You can watch me and Connor bring you the nerdy news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. Now, this week, quite a busy week indeed. And you would know that if you had watched us live over at twitch.tv/2pennygames Sunday at 4 p.m. when we record all of our podcasts. Shout out to Obesity Balls 2 and Phil in the chat for, jumping in and saying hi and all of that. Twitch.tv/2pennygames. Also, check us out on TikTok and on Twitter. New videos posting pretty much daily now. Links in the description down below. Now, Connor, let's get into some news, my friend. We had an interesting week of news this week, and we're going to start it off with topic number 1, penny number 1. This is going to be my first penny of the day. Let's talk about a Nintendo Direct that happened.
Yeah, it did happen.
It did happen.
And people liked it. From my, I didn't watch it live, but the estimation I got from Twitter is that people all had their little bits to chomp on.
Indeed, yes, and you can watch me and Phil Shoemaker, who hosts the Twitch live streams on Mondays and hosts the Piggy Bank. He and I jumped in and did a video react, just like we did with all of the other E3, not E3, Summer Game Fest showcases, which you can find all of that at youtube.com/@2pennygames. And I gotta say, yeah, I thought this was a pretty good Direct. It was really, really solid. It gave us a lot of really cool information, a lot of great updates on a lot of things that were cooking for quite a while. Speaking of, right now we're showing on the screen some Pokemon DLC stuff, but there were great things like the release date for the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, which is fantastic. I don't know why it is that we're doing this thing where we are announcing games somewhere, usually at a PlayStation event, and then giving us the release date at the Nintendo event. It happened with Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, and it's now happened again with Metal Gear Solid. I don't know what's up with that. It's interesting, but, it keeps happening. And, of course, Super Mario Brothers Wonder and Super Mario Brothers RPG. I'm very excited for both of those. Connor, did you watch? You could not make it to the React, but did you watch the Direct in your free time?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I chose to pick and choose the interesting things, and then moments before this podcast started, do the things that were not interesting to me on a first glance. Which, honestly, there's some other good stuff that I didn't expect, that didn't hit my radar earlier this week. And so I can see why it was a good direct overall if I actually sat down and watched the whole thing.
Indeed. Well, Connor, let's jump into it just a little bit and just kind of run through a couple of things that were mentioned. Let's talk about the highlights so far. Super Mario Brothers Wonder ended ended the direct with delight, I will say. New 2D Mario with a fresh new art style. Co-op, 4-player. You get to kind of pick and choose whoever you want to play. You're not stuck to player one being Mario or anything, which was very nice. Princess Daisy, playable for the first time in a 2D Mario, I believe. And I gotta say, it looks just joyous. Let me skip ahead here in the footage. But yeah, Super Mario Wonder, I think, is just going to be a fantastic game. I'm very, very excited about it. I'm excited to see, at the end of the gameplay trailer that they showed, it was... he picks up a power-up and turns into an elephant at some point and starts just kind of kicking things around and stuff. I'd like to see more of that. Me and Phil on the React theorized a couple of different things that could happen in the game. For example, the little purple coins from Super Mario Odyssey are back. And in that game, it was more of like a currency that you would use to buy cosmetic items in the in-game shop. And I'm curious if that's going to have a similar function here in Wonder. I would really, really like it if there is. If I could dress up my characters, whether it's Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, or Toad, dress them up in different little costumes. Or if I could play as different animals, if I could pick an animal I could play as for the animal power-up, whether it be an elephant or a tiger or, I don't know, a big ape or something. I think all of that would be really cool. Again, that was just me theorizing and hypothesizing. But I gotta say, the new art style, I think, looks fantastic. The music was so good. And it looks like just it's clearly like similar to the old art style. They didn't take like a huge jump in difference from the new Super Mario Brothers art style that we had for 15 years at this point. And but it's just different enough. It's a little more cartoony. It's a little more animated or a little more, how can I put it? Like it's got more character to it. A lot more like animated. Smiling and like cartoony almost. It's more cartoony now. But still kind of keeps its roots in that style that we've been accustomed to for the last 10 years or so. But yeah, I'm very, very excited to get my hands on it. Connor, how did you feel about Super Mario Wonder?
Well, it looks like a Mario game. It has all the bits and baubles of one, which isn't a bad thing. No. I'm not. I've on the record on the podcast saying I'm not a big platforming fan. Mario games are included in that category, but it looks fun. It looks cute. As you were saying before, it looks a lot more expressive than some of the other Mario games. Not to say that they weren't expressive, but it's more noticeable here. The customization element that you were talking about possibly being there makes sense, seeing as how they're trying to give people as many options to play with the characters that you want to. And it seems like customization is a reasonable thing to also go along with if you're doing that. I definitely know the people who are into fetishes are going to like this game since you can turn into an element. They're going to be all over this game, so you're going to see a lot of people playing it, and some of them less than savory. But, it looks like a fun Mario game. Everyone knows what a Mario game is, and this is just one of those. And it's going to be good. It's why when the game was first announced, you were telling me to get it for my fantasy critic, because it was basically a lock-in to be a good game.
Hey, dumbass, moron, idiot, I told you to go big on this game. And what do? You underbid Phil by $1. You had $60, $70 that you had to think. Phil had $21.
I didn't know he had that much. If he did, I would have.
You can see it. It's there.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
I don't know, Tavin. That sounds like fake news.
All you had to do was bid more than what he could possibly do, and it would have been yours. That would have been an easy 90 points for you, Connor.
Yeah, I see the budget. The moment I'm looking for it, I see it. Yeah,
it's almost like you're trying to lose this.
At this point, yeah, I might as well be, right?
No, don't try to lose.
I want
this to be a yearly thing that we do. I like it. I like doing it, and I think it's a lot of fun.
This is the testing period, Tavin. It's where I test the waters. I know how the systems work. I know what games to bid for and not to bid for. Trust me, Tavin. This is all part of the groundwork of the plan that I'm laying right now.
Connor,
Don't you worry.
Bid for anything that doesn't look interesting to you, that you know people will like. That's what you should do.
Well, that's boring though. That's so boring. But hey, I got the RPG remake, so there you go. People like that game.
You did get the RPG remake. Speaking of which, let's dive into that. That was probably the second biggest announcement from the Direct. Is the Super Mario RPG remake? Sort of along the lines of the Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening remake, where they just kind of like updated all the textures and models and stuff and rebuilt the game, but kind of kept it very true to its original form. I think it looks great. It looks like a really solid, fun time. It's super charming in its art style. It's super gorgeous to look at. And as someone who has never had the opportunity to play the original Super Mario RPG, excuse me, I'm excited to jump in and see what it's all about and see if it's, you know, worth. I wouldn't say this is like ever heralded as like one of the greatest games ever made, but it's certainly like a lot of people really liked it. And it's always sort of made its way in history as like, oh yeah, when Mario was an RPG, that was cool. And I'd like to see what was cool about it.
Yeah, out of everything on this Direct, that hit my radar the most. Not because I'm personally interested in it, but for some reason I follow a lot of people who herald this game, as you were saying, as like one of the greats. So I've only heard good things about it, and people who have played it are saying that from what they were seeing from this trailer, they're updating it in a lot of meaningful ways, but also keeping it the same game. You know, it's not like this big reimagining of the original one, but I don't know if I'll play this exactly, since one of the big things about RPGs is I like the style of the RPG. That's kind of the first thing that draws me in most of the time, and it is just Mario, which I've seen a lot of times, but it looks good. You know, I'll never knock it, especially because I hear it's a great RPG.
Yeah, I really like what I'm seeing. I think it looks really just really charming and really cute and fun. And it looks like, I feel like this is going to be a pretty simple RPG. Again, I've never played the original, so I don't know for sure. But yeah, I'm excited to see what all the hubbub is about in it. And I think this is going to be a great opportunity in order to do so. This also kicked off a trilogy of Mario announcements. The next being there is some kind of mysterious Princess Peach game that was announced for next year. No real details to it. Peach is taking center stage, and then her dress turns blue, and that's it. That's all we got. And so
yeah, I think Daisy would be a better choice. That's just me, though.
You're such a hater. But yeah, sure. I'm open to hearing more. I'm interested in hearing more. Will I play it? I don't know. I want to see more before I do. And then just a quick announcement that the Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon for the 3DS is now being ported to Switch, and you can play it on Switch, which is cool. I believe that puts the entire trilogy on Switch now. Phil in the chat, if you're still here, correct me, or Connor, if you could Google it real quick. I think the original Luigi's Mansion is on Switch now already, but if someone could confirm that for me so I could know. And then from there, Connor, I think we could just kind of pick and choose a couple of things. There was like some cool stuff, some like boring stuff, some things that you're like, oh God, really? Batman Arkham Trilogy on Switch? I guess, sure, why not?
Can't wait to play that first game again.
But this time, wherever you want. And listen, it looks like the Batman Arkham Trilogy on Switch, which is not great, you know? Arkham Knight specifically does not look great. But, you know, it's cool that they're coming. A lot of this to me felt like all right, we're closing out the Switch. We're near the final years of it. What else can we add to it? And Batman is like, they're like, yeah, sure, we'll do Batman. Why not?
And by the way, to the Luigi's Mansion question, the first game is not on Switch. It's on 3DS. It was ported to that, but
interesting,
not Switch. Right. So
well, I imagine
I didn't even know there were 3 games either.
Of course, there was one called Luigi's Mansion 3 2 years ago, Connor.
I remember that one, and I remember Luigi's Mansion, which I played, but just Dark Moon, never heard of it.
Dark Moon, 3DS. Yeah.
No, there it is.
Myself. And then it was a bunch of updates. We finally saw the return of Detective Pikachu, which looks fun, I guess. It looks ugly for certain. Like, it does not look pretty. But what can you expect from a Switch game that isn't getting the full Nintendo funding? But, charming enough. The little Pikachu, Detective Pikachu running around talking to you and stuff is fun and cute. Not for me, but, I'm sure somebody will enjoy it quite a bit.
AKA Phil.
AKA Phil, indeed. The release date for the Metal Gear Solid Masters Collection Volume 1 is coming October 24th. And
then you clapped?
Huh?
And then you clapped?
I did. I clapped at the thing. I went, oh, wow, this is great. No, honestly, like, this package is actually way more than I thought it was going to be, including... Let me see if I can find it here. Including, obviously, Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3, which we already knew. And Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, which we knew from a PlayStation Store posting. But they're also giving us Metal Gear for the NES and Metal Gear Snake's Revenge, which... quick facts, Connor, if you didn't know. Metal Gear, the first one, on NES is a different game. It's similar, but it's different. Like, a lot of the names get changed around, and the art style is a little different, but it's the same general idea of the original Metal Gear game made by Hideo Kojima, but it's made by a different studio. Snake's Revenge is a sequel to Metal Gear on the NES, so not a sequel to the original Kojima game that Konami made... or licensed out to, I believe, a Western studio, but I could be wrong in that. And Kojima had no idea that it was going to happen. And because Kojima caught wind of this through a coworker on the train or something, they were like, hey, have you heard about this? And he goes, what? So then he went off and made Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. And Snake's Revenge, the, like, bootleg Metal Gear sequel, is considered one of the worst video games of all time. And so the fact that it's going to be in this collection is wild. I believe it's the first time it's been re-released since its original releasing of the NES, which, remember, Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2, the Kojima ones, were not released in the West initially. Like, it took a long time. I believe Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence was the first time they were released to the West. But just the way it's happened, those versions of those games have been more accessible than the NES games. So it's cool that we're getting those alongside the graphic novels of the first game and access to the soundtrack. All of that's great. I'm very excited to play and jump in. And then there were some leaks this week saying that giving sort of the lineup of what a Metal Gear Solid Volume 2 collection would be. That being pretty much what you would expect. Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid 4, and Metal Gear Solid 5. Metal Gear Solid 4 being the interesting one there because it'd be the first time it, jumped from the PS3 and is playable on any type of modern hardware, which I'm excited about.
Tavin, are you excited about playing it on your Nintendo Switch?
No, not at all. But you know what? I probably will. At some point. Obviously, I'll play it on PlayStation first to get my trophies. But, I mean, come on, man. I'll bring my Switch around and I'll be playing it on that.
That's true. It does have the added benefit of being taken wherever you go. And imagine that. Metal Gear Solid 3 at the touch of your fingertips.
Oh, God, I can't wait. Well, I've always had that, Connor, with the beauty of the thing called the PlayStation Vita.
Now you have it on a superior system.
Yeah, they're not that superior. Vampire Survivors announced for Nintendo Switch coming on August 17th. This was one of my... It didn't make my top 10 last year. It was one of my honorable mentions last year, and I played it on mobile, and they announced 4-player co-op. Connor, this game's awesome. Play Vampire Survivors. You did play it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah,
I didn't get too far in it.
I lost quite a bit of time to Vampire Survivors last year.
Well, now you have this multiplayer thing to jump into, because honestly, that's...
Right?
It kind of just already screams multiplayer from the get-go. And it makes sense to.
Well, I could see it very quickly of like we're all like running off and killing our things and leveling up, and then coming together as the hordes get crazy, and you go, "All right, I really need some help."
Yeah, I might have to jump in on this one for that reason.
That's exciting, right?
Though I never also will play this on the Switch because online Switch sucks. So I'll probably get this on like Steam or something. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. Next, and the next biggest thing for me, or the thing that I cared the most about, was Penny's Big Breakaway. This is a 3D action platformer from the makers of Sonic Mania. And you play as this little character called Penny, and it's got a really nice art style. And she throws around like this little yo-yo, and she uses the yo-yo to swing off of, obstacles and environments. But she can also use it to like drive on and beat up enemies with. It looks great. It's on my short list for next year of things that I'm excited about.
It looks like a fun little game.
Here we go. Let me look. Okay. I think that's all that impressed me. Connor, what popped out to you that you looked at and you went, you know what? Honestly, not bad.
Yeah, mine. One of mine that I was talking about a little bit before, hinting at, was Myth Force. That honestly looked like a fun multiplayer game. Yeah, I know. I know you'd be surprised at that one.
All right.
It doesn't seem, of course, like this. Oh my god, this looks like it's mind bending, bro. It's not that, but I've always liked the Saturday morning cartoon aesthetic and class-based 4-player games, or really class-based multiplayer games. Dark and Darker is one that's come out in a beta fairly recently that I enjoyed playing with my friends, and that one's kind of in some legal issues preventing it from being released properly. So this kind of seems to relatively fill that hole that I've been looking for, and might be a fun little game to jump into. It, of course, might not be much to write home about, but some more surprising things have happened. Who knows? Maybe this is one of those sleeper hits that really just wows the audience.
Okay. All right. Well, more power to you, my friend.
Yeah. Another one, I'll point it out real quick, was Star Ocean: The Second Story R. I'm not familiar with the Star Ocean series. Never played one before, but
yes,
showcase.
This one just came up in the B-roll footage, so
yeah,
this game does look dope.
It does look very cool. I'm interested to see how combat goes because it's saying it's in real time, which it's played out like a turn-based RPG, but it doesn't seem to be a turn-based RPG. So I'm kind of interested.
It looks almost more like an action game.
It does, yeah, with assists that you can call in, a really, really nice art style. I love this kind of sprite-like art style. That reminds me of things like Octopath Traveler. Is it made by the same studio as well?
Because I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, this is a remake, is what it is. Mm-hmm. But given this style, so I don't know what this is fully, but like it was just off of what they showed, it was enough to get me interested. Coming November 2nd, which is kind of unfortunate because we have a lot coming out this year, specifically in October and September. So maybe I'll still have time to jump in and try it out. I'd really like to, but we'll see. It's a remake, so it should be available for grabbing on your fantasy draft, Connor.
And I just might. In fact,
I was doing it right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Not yet. Let me see. What did this game originally get? Because that's what I've been doing when I see these remakes that are up for grabs. Star Ocean 2? It's like, how well received was it? Finding out.
We're finding
out. Is it the Divine Force? No. Wait, maybe it is? No. Maybe this is going to be harder to do since there's a lot of them, I think. Yeah, what is this even a remake of? The Second Story? Is that the name of the original one? I have very
Star Ocean:
knowledge.
The Second Story R.
That's
R,
like the remake.
I assume means for remake, but if you just type in Star Ocean: The Second Story.
Yeah, that's how it is. So that is the original name. Let's see what it got. 71%. But no, it's not. That's the Divine Force. I don't think there's any review.
Is the Divine Force like a re-release or an expansion release or something?
This one was October 27th, 2022. So I think it was just the most recent entry into the game series. So I guess and the original one's 1998. The Second Story, that is.
That's
the one that's being remade.
More appropriate.
Yeah, so I guess it just probably have to just get it. Find out if it takes on the open.
Dive in deep. Yeah. There we go. Well, Connor, speaking of remakes and of turn-based / just Japanese remakes, let's jump over to story number 2, topic number 2, your first penny of the day. What do we got?
Well, we got the first of many VGC articles. That's Video Game Chronicles. This one is from Chris Scullion. Square Enix staff have been asking the Final Fantasy head for a Final Fantasy VI remake, but Yoshinori Kitase says it would be difficult, and he's not thinking about it until 7 is done. Square Enix staff members have reportedly been asking Final Fantasy's brand manager if a remake of Final Fantasy VI is coming. During an official roundtable discussion to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the Final Fantasy series, Final Fantasy brand manager and Final Fantasy VII remake producer Yoshinori Kitase addressed the topic of a potential Final Fantasy VI remake. As translated by Genki JPN, Kitase reportedly said, "I think Final Fantasy VI remake would be difficult. Final Fantasy VII remake is not yet finished, so I am not able to think about it. But there are many Final Fantasy VI fans inside the company, and they often ask me, when are we making 6? Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, who is also participating in the roundtable discussion, then reportedly explained that a remake of Final Fantasy VI would be harder to do because as a pixel game based rather than a polygonal one, it would be more work to change the story and reimagine the game as a 3D experience. However, he did then ask Kitase, won't you release it a little sooner? This caused Kitase to laugh and says, it isn't easy. The original tweet there. Final Fantasy VI was originally released on the SNES in 1994 before being ported to the PlayStation in 1999 and the Game Boy Advance in 2006. More recently, it was included as part of the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster collection alongside remastered versions of Final Fantasy 1 through 5. If reports are to be believed, a Final Fantasy IX remake is more likely than a Final Fantasy VI one. Earlier this year, Giant Bomb reporter Jeff Grubb claimed, I will say I heard very recently, once again, Final Fantasy IX Remake is real, that is real and happening. Gematsu subsequently reported that a Final Fantasy IX Remake is currently in development too. So I saw you kind of give a quizzical look when they were saying how it's hard to remake a pixel game.
As opposed to the polygonal one that is Final Fantasy VII. I get what you're trying to say, but you were so limited in Final Fantasy VII. Like, you were able, there's so much more detail in 6, just because you were more, like, acclimated to making that type of game. It wasn't new technology. It was on a Nintendo system, which you were more familiar with, as opposed to a PlayStation. Like, say what you want about Final Fantasy VII for its, critically acclaimed story and battle systems and characters and all this. It doesn't look very pretty. And it aged like milk. And, maybe for the time it was impressive, but, like, you can look immediately with its next game, Final Fantasy VIII, how they took out the pre-rendered backgrounds and immediately turned it into a fully, like, 3D world and stuff. So, like, and it looks so much better, like, just even in the character models. So it's just like, what are you talking about, bro? More work, I guess. I don't know. More creativity on the art side in the beginning. But, I mean, artists are going to make art. I'm sure it's, it's work, but, like, is it really going to be that much more difficult than what you've done with Final Fantasy VII Remake? I guess also you could argue Crisis Core kind of and Advent Children kind of flushed out the world of Final Fantasy VII more, so there was less development of what the world looked like. We already kind of knew what Midgard looked like in 3D and with HD visuals and so forth. Whereas 6, you would have to flush everything out.
Yeah, and the weird thing is that I had a point, and then I lost it. Classic brain fart.
Well, let me jump in on this, Connor. Would you want Final Fantasy VI? I imagine everybody would want Final Fantasy VI to be a more traditional remake, where
that was what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, just an updated battle system, but the exact same story going through. Because spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's not a remake; it's a sequel.
It's redefining what remake means.
Yeah, we're getting meta with it, But, like, Final Fantasy VII, the world and the development of that series made sense for that to happen. There was a compilation of games, quite literally. They called it the compilation, where you had Crisis Core and After Crisis, which was
Crisis? I can't remember.
No, Ever Crisis is the new thing. I think it was After Crisis, where you played as Turks or whatever, that was on mobile phones before smartphones. And, Advent Children. Oh, Before Crisis. That's what it was called. Because it was Advent Children, Before Crisis, Crisis Core. And so it's just like Dirge of Cerberus. That was the other one. So you had like all of these like series and these long-winded things. The universe of Final Fantasy VII is bigger than any other Final Fantasy game, just because it had more entries and time to flush characters out and time to flush the world out and all of that stuff. So it made sense when FF7 Remake went the path that it went. Here with 6, you kind of you want to like Square Enix it, right? Where it's just like, we're going to take this game that's old and we're going to put it in a new gameplay system and we're going to make it look really pretty, but it's going to be exactly what you remember narratively.
Yeah, there's no real reason to change up that plot at all. In fact, looking at it, I don't know how they would even begin to do that. So to the point of them saying that it would be more difficult, when you don't have that whole plot thing to figure out, you just need to follow the train that happened in the last game, in the original Final Fantasy VI.
For your main plot, but you do have to punch up dialogue and, fill out scenes and character interactions, because a full scene in Final Fantasy VII Remake, for example, would be 3 lines of text in the original game.
Yeah, so it'd be work. And I even see some big Final Fantasy VI fans saying, please don't do this. Please don't remake 6 in the way that Final Fantasy VII was done. Not speaking from a story perspective, but just from the style of it. People have generally been calling for Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy VIII to be remade before those. And I could see why. Final Fantasy VI, as you said, it really did just have that pixel art style that was really locked down at that point. It's a beautiful game, beautiful looking game, and people kind of want to see, it is more easy to visualize what a remake of Final Fantasy VIII and 9 and 10 would look like, more so than those. And so it's a lot easier to satisfy people, as where 6, you would have to, you are right, particularly in the form of dialogue, it'd be your biggest hurdle, just because you have a lot of characters in that game. You have a lot of plot details which are told in a completely different way. You
now have the problem of these characters never had voices before, and now we have to give them voices. What is the princess of that? I forget her name because I've only played the intro to Final Fantasy VI. What is her name? What does her voice sound like? What does the hero's voice sound like? That's a tricky thing.
You can go wherever you want at that point. Just throw it out there. Just go whatever.
Yeah, but you could also get very scary with it. You know what I'm saying? Like you could, a poor casting of it could be, difficult. So there's a lot of challenges for this that, 7 Remake didn't necessarily tackle. But, speaking to Katasi's quote, I don't think like the art of it would be that much more difficult than 7. But what do I know? I'm just an idiot on the internet who doesn't make video games. I just play them. But yeah, it seems like we're getting 9 first anyway. After the 7 Remake trilogy is done, so it's just like, all right, well, how far in the future are we taking this? Really, you know what I'm saying?
I'll wait. I still need to play Final Fantasy IX in its original form. I would be hitting myself on the back if I didn't. So
yeah. I mean, you can play 1 through 6 through the Pixel Remaster, which was said at the end of the article there. Mm-hmm. And I looked at the Pixel Remaster when it finally came to PlayStation 4. And man, those games are pricey. It's like $20 a pop, or you can buy them collectively for $80 or some shit like that. 80, 90, something like that. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is expensive.
Yep, and I'd probably stick for the $20 individual ones, because I really just want to play 5 and 6 own that on a PlayStation or a Steam.
Yeah, I suppose it's just depending upon what you're wanting to do. Once those games start popping up in the game club, I'm gonna probably just buy the whole collection and just have them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Ready to go.
So. But I'm excited, Connor, to hear more about what is in the future of Final Fantasy and remakes in general. What do we have coming on the branch? But it's just so far away. So let's move on to topic number 3, something a little more current, a little more immediate in its timing. EA is splitting into 2 different organizations. This is going to be my second penny of the day. Again, from VGC, from Tom Ivan, Electronic Arts is restructuring its studios into 2 organizations. EA Entertainment, which houses owned and licensed IP, and EA Sports. Electronic Arts has announced it's restructuring its studios into two organizations, EA Entertainment and EA Sports. The former, which houses the publisher's owned IP and licensed games, will be headed up by Laura Mealy, who has been appointed president of EA Entertainment Technology and Central Development. Respawn co-founder Vince Zampella will lead the EA studios responsible for Apex Legends, its Star Wars and Battlefield games. Samantha Ryan will run the division's lifestyle franchises and blockbuster single-player games, while Jeff Karp will remain in charge of the mobile games business. EA Sports will continue to be headed up by Cam Weber, who has been appointed president of the organization responsible for the company's sports and racing games. EA CEO Andrew Wilson, Jesus Christ, excuse me. Sorry, just dying real quick. Oh, I've lost, I'm on the wrong, damn it. I'm on the wrong fucking thing. That ruined the whole recording.
Uh-oh.
Oh, well. Hey, Connor, you can't edit an EA video this week.
Well, that's fine.
It's all fucked. That's my apologies. Where was I? EA CEO Andrew Wilson announced the restructuring plans in a message shared with the company's employees on Tuesday. Quote, "This evolution of our company continues to empower our studio leaders with more creative ownership and financial accountability to make faster and more insightful decisions around development and go-to-market strategies," he said. Quote, "These steps will accelerate our business, drive growth, and deliver long-term value for our people, our players, and our communities." Wilson also confirmed that Chris Bruzzo is leaving his position as Chief Experience Officer, a role which will be taken on by former Chief Marketing Officer David Tinson. And Chief Financial Officer Chris Sue has chosen to leave the company. He will be replaced by Stuart Canfield, who was previously Senior Vice President of Finance. EA announced in March that it planned to cut 6% of its workforce as part of a restructuring plan that would result in the company incurring up to $200 million in charges. These consist of, quote, approximately $65 million to $70 million in charges related to intellectual property impairment, approximately $55 million to $65 million related to employee severance and employee-related costs, approximately $45 million to $55 million associated with office space reductions, and approximately $5 million to $10 million of other charges, including contract cancellations.
Well, I don't know how this is going to help them.
Well, I think honestly, like, it makes sense because it has felt for a long time that EA proper, or I should say the EA Entertainment with all the IPs and all of the other games under their branch, and EA Sports have felt like two different entities for quite a while now. And so I think it makes more sense to do this than to not. I think it kind of creates specific umbrellas in which everybody can have a clearer chain of communication going forward. And I think it's sort of a restructuring and a reorganization that it will allow them to sort of put out games in a better format behind the scenes. Up front, I don't think it'll really show us any difference. I think, but behind the scenes, it will. You'll just, I think everything will be a lot clearer, and the direction of the two entities will feel a lot more, how can I put it? A lot more intentional between the two. Like, we can start looking at Electronic Arts Entertainment and be like, okay, so we're getting, whatever's happening next with Dead Space. We're getting, the furthering of Apex Legends and Star Wars things and Battlefield stuff. And it'll all just kind of make a little more sense, and we'll be like, okay, this is what that is. Whereas sports, obviously they've lost the FIFA title in the last year or two. And so the next soccer game that comes out will be, Football Club or whatever. And I think that, in combination with what they do with Madden and NHL and all of that, that will all start to feel more connected, or more like it's all in the same family. And and we can start like paying attention of like, this is all the sports stuff, this is all the other stuff, and you can sort of like see a delineage between the two in a way that will allow them to focus.
Maybe we'll see a Battlefield game out of this somehow. Maybe something will
What do you
cause
mean maybe
this.
we'll see a Battlefield game? We're getting Battlefield games all the time.
What are you
We just
talking
got
about?
one like a year or two ago.
I'm sorry, Battlefront. My bad. Star Wars Battlefront. That's maybe we'll see a new Star Wars Battlefront out of this somehow.
Unlikely. We'll see. We'll see. But I don't think so. Unless
just not hoping
unless
about
it's
that.
unless it's what Respawn's doing. But like that
I
would be
doubt
weird.
that.
That would be
Yeah.
weird. Yeah, I feel like Respawn just let them make whatever they want to make inside the universe of Star Wars, and it'll be cool. And then just a lot of names getting thrown around. Vince Zampella, leading EA Studios responsible for Apex Legends, Star Wars, and Battlefield games. Vince, I think, has shown himself to kind of, know what's happening and know what's going on. I think the launch of successful titles like Apex Legends, like the 2 Star Wars Jedi games, I imagine has given him a lot of clout within EA Studios. So I think they're going to continue to let him sort of handle the real big stuff. And then, other guys can handle more of the EA Originals type things, like your Avium's Immortals, your Immortals of Avium, and etc. stuff. So just sort of a really interesting thing to just kind of keep note of and keep track of on the back end of EA.
What do you think they're gonna do? Cool new logos whenever their games pop up?
Absolutely, they will, Connor. Yeah,
It's gonna look so rad. That's probably
man.
the most people will see in as far as the differences. They'll be like, "Oh wow, what is this new thing they're doing?"
What I think they should bring in their big voice guy for the old EA games. Or EA Sports. It's like, I think that should come in every time, like when you get to the E3 showcase of whatever EA is doing. When it's time to talk about sports, you just black screen, boom. EA Sports, and then we just montage through all the sports games.
Tavin, they won't montage through it. We're gonna spend a lot of time.
Oh, we're gonna spend so long talking to people we don't know.
Here's football legend that's gonna die within the year because we cursed them on stage.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen EA on a stage in 2 years now. I want to say the last time I saw them was when they did the Dead Space remake announcement.
Quite a while ago.
Yeah, and like everything else, we've just kind of seen pop up as need be. But I don't know. We'll find out. Moving on to speaking of E3 stages, moving on to our final topic of the day. And Connor, your second penny. Take it away, my friend.
Well, I got a surprise for you guys. This is Video Game Chronicle. Bigger surprise. This is Andy Robinson. 3 different writers for each of these articles. So give ourselves a round of applause.
Support writers out here, guys.
Exactly. But E3 2024 and 2025 have been canceled. LA Tourism Board claims. Update. The ESA claims, quote, no financial decisions, unquote, made on next year's plans. That's according to the Los Angeles City Tourism Board, which notes in a meeting packet, spotted by Reset Era, published on Wednesday, that a summary of planned city conventions includes E3 cancellations for 2024 and 2025. E3 was due to return for its first in-person show in 4 years this month. However, after months of buildup and uncertainty, the show was canceled in March. Here's the update that was made. In a statement issued to VGC, E3 owners, the ESA claims that no final decisions have been made about the next year's potential event. ESA is currently having conversations about E3 2024 and beyond, and no final decisions about the event have been made at this time. At the time, E3's new organizer, ReedPop, claimed that it simply did not garner the sustained interest necessary to execute it in a way that would showcase the size, strength, and impact of our industry. Its possible revival plans could involve relocating outside of Los Angeles, where E3 has been held for 2 decades. But otherwise, the future of the once flagship event of the games industry doesn't look bright. VGC has contacted E3's organizer ReedPop for clarification. In E3's absence, many smaller events took place in LA this month, including Predeffer Jeff Keighley's rival Summer Games Fest, Ubisoft Forward, and an Xbox showcase. Speaking to VGC last month, Keighley dismissed suggestions that the competition from his rival event was partly responsible for the cancellation of E3 2023. Keighley started Summer Games Fest in 2020 after he split from E3, where he previously held its Coliseum live events. At the time, he cited being uncomfortable with organizers' ESA plans for E3. I think E3 sort of killed itself in a way, Keighley said. I understand why people say SGF killed E3, but I think if anything, we created Summer Games Fest and I built Summer Games Fest because I saw the wheels falling off the wagon of E3. As someone who loves that time of year, for 2 decades, E3 was part of my life since I was a 15-year-old kid. From the first year in E3 in 1995, I went to every show. I loved it, and it defined my summer. He added, "It was so exciting to me. It was heartbreaking to see that start to fall apart. I think they had a relevancy problem, and they also had a participation problem over the final years. So yeah, I think the question is, if we didn't do Summer Games Fest, what would happen? I think things would have just kind of really splintered apart this summer." And that's the end of the article. Jeff Keighley I think he's right. You know, we saw the interest of E3 wane before Summer Games Fest even came out to play. I remember E3 would come out and it'd be this big thing where all these games were shown, and I always saw the reception being very warm and just super excited for the E3 coming each month. I know I was part of that crowd, but over time that just kind of lessened and lessened and lessened. The showcases would get really bloated at some point, and you would go from having kind of some uncertainty as to whether this year's showcase would be good. It would be broken up. Sometimes it would be bad, sometimes it would be good, but over time, slowly they just kind of became, I wonder what games are going to be announced here. I guess I'll just pay attention to what pops up on YouTube rather than watch the whole thing, because I'm not really gonna get that many interesting games on the showcase floor. And I think that's really just we've talked about this for a while. We've always said, E3 canceled this year. E3 canceled this year. Part of that was due to COVID as well, which really just made that even worse. And that tied in the fact that people were already just losing interest. This was kind of an inevitability. And I do hope it goes on in some form or fashion, like this article said. Just moving out of LA, because LA is really expensive to hold a convention there, I would assume. There's way more easy places you could do it elsewhere in the United States. And you'd probably save a lot of money, because people obviously are kind of becoming less and less interested in going to E3. So Summer Games Fest is just the new thing, and E3 was just failing on its own. Now we're seeing those final nails possibly be hammered into the coffin.
Yeah, it's really just a matter of time here. I'm not gonna say it's gone yet. I think if E3 does show up next year, it's not in LA. Where? I don't know. Could be San Francisco. They've been in Atlanta before. I'm sure they could go to New York or something like that. But I do not believe you will see an E3 in LA next year or the year forward, or maybe ever again. Is E3 dead? No. Is it dying? Yes. And it really sucks. I think Keighley is correct. It started going in a direction to where it was disconnecting itself from what was special about that period of time or that time of the year. And with the rise of video content and video streaming and online participation in these events and the digital showcases and so forth, it just made less and less sense for publishers to show up at E3. You saw it withering away as we continued on, where there would be wavering years where Nintendo would be a part of it and then they wouldn't, and then Nintendo started doing their directs, and then they started being separated from E3, and then sometimes they'd be connected to E3 but not really with their directs. EA was in a similar boat where sometimes it wasn't at E3, but it was at the building next to E3 or something like that. And then PlayStation in 2018, does that sound right? 2019, somewhere around there, full on just dropped out of the show and just said, "See ya, we're doing our own thing." And ever since then, it's just been a continuation of that. I think what Keighley has done is he has created less of a singular event and more of just a time of season. And with that, we're able to all connect everything together so people can still get their news from the same source, but everyone is having their own individual events so that, the specific publishers can have more control over what they're doing. Sometimes that works out in everybody's favor, where you have great showcases from PlayStation or this year specifically Xbox, who I think has had the best showcase of the season. And then you can have, little disasters like what Ubisoft put together from a presentation perspective, or Capcom showing up and just having nothing to say. It leads to a variety of things, but it's never falling on the shoulders of Jeff Keighley if someone else screws up. It's just the singular Summer Game Fest showcase that's all him, and it can sort of function as a catch-all, a work of like, all right, well, these guys, Mortal Kombat, for example, they're not going to show up at PlayStation this year. They're not going to Xbox this year. Hey, well, where can we go? Because we're ready to start the marketing campaign for Mortal Kombat 1. Oh, Keighley. Great. We'll go show up at Keighley's event. And you'll see a lot of different examples of that. Connor, correct me, was Square Enix heavy at the Summer Game Fest one? That sounds right?
Ugh.
Or was it the Xbox one?
I think it may have been the Summer Games Fest one.
I think it was, because I remember that's where like the Foam Star Party game showed up, right? And because all three of us reacted to Summer Game Fest, but then it was like mix match for everything else, right? I think it was just you and me for Xbox, and then me and Phil for Ubisoft, and then you and Phil for Capcom, and then me and Phil for Nintendo, if I have that right. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Regardless, Keighley works as sort of a catch-all for what's left. When you have publishers, small or big, wanting to show off their games, Keighley is there for them. And Keighley is creating just a period of time in which the big dogs can come out and say, hey, here's our presentation, and everybody's going to be watching and listening and paying attention. And there's just something about an event in the summer and then an event in the winter, whether that be, right now it's both Keighley events with Summer Game Fest and then Game Awards, or E3 and Game Awards or something like that. It just makes a little more sense. So what E3 has an identity crisis right now. E3, you hear that name and you go, what does that mean? And once upon a time it meant something. Right now it doesn't feel like it means anything. One, because they took chances and did things and made business decisions that did not make sense. And then two, everybody left. So it was like, all right, well, what do we do? And then COVID accelerated that process by, killing them in 2020. They struggled in 21, 22, nothing, 23, nothing. I might have 21 and 22 backwards, but, you get the idea. And so as of right now, it's just E3 needs to probably go away and figure out what they need, what they are, figure out what their brand is. What are we getting from E3 specifically? Is it still going to be a show for shareholders where announcements can be made and details can be fleshed out and everybody's stock prices can go up or down or left or right, wherever the stock is going to go? Or is it going to be more of a fan event in the future where you can come and try out games for the first time or something, and the public can get their hands on demos and so forth? I don't know, but as of right now, E3 is not in a very good negotiating spot. Like, if I'm a game publisher, why would I want to bring my stuff to E3? I don't know if I would, when I could do a thing on my own. I could go to Keighley's events, which, coincides so nicely on the calendar right now. Or, just release my things as a blog post. Pretty much all of Jedi Survivor's marketing was just done through dropping trailers on YouTube and doing their own gameplay reveals on YouTube whenever they wanted to. Like, it wasn't a big event. It was just here's an announcement trailer. Here's a 9-minute gameplay demo. Here's another trailer to get you excited. All right, the game's out. In the age of digital media, what is the purpose of having these big events? Keighley's got a better answer than anybody else right now. That was the end of my tirade. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No problem at all. Yeah, I didn't. It really needs to do something to stand out, because now that Summer Games Fest is coming into play, and other people are doing their own showcases, Xbox, who knows who else is going to do things? Ubisoft, of course, big player in the in doing their own directs, showcases. Nintendo Direct, of course.
Remember, Ubisoft was signed up for E3 until Yves Guillemot had the quote of, "Hey, we're going to be at E3 if E3 happens,"
and then it didn't, and so they weren't there. So they have to do something interesting because all the big guys have their own showcases, or they're going to the Summer Games Fest. Maybe it takes the form in showing more niche games, being a full, not necessarily indie showcase, but games closer in that sphere than the big titles that come out every single year. And there is a market for that because there's a big group of people who get disappointed with the AAA titles nowadays. The one that takes a very long time to come out, sometimes released with bug problems, are being priced at $70 an hour, $70, when the game comes out. So there is a market elsewhere to try and go to, but I don't know if E3 is necessarily interested in doing that. But that might be the best path for them going forward from how things are seeming right now.
Yeah. It's a tough place to be in. And I hope, because, there's a lot of people's jobs and stuff on the line here. I hope they figure something out. But if this is, as you are quite literally saluting, if this is the final salute from E3, it was a hell of a run.
Oh, not the best going out ceremony, but yeah, it was a good run.
Yeah.
1995 goes back that. I don't think of it going back that far.
Yeah, man,
so
it's far back, but you'll remember it died for a few years and then it came back again, and so it always, E3 has shown to that it can go and come back, but not in the modern age. And you think of the years. I think of 2016 as being a landmark year for E3 of PlayStation brought out the big guns that year. It was exciting to see stuff from Xbox that year and everybody else that was there that year. And so, but there was a series of things, I hear a lot about 2015, 2017 was cool. But then, they just very quickly started looking at them and going, what's the point? I don't know, but we'll find out hopefully sooner than later. And I hope everything works out for the best for all parties involved. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be it for the news this week. Remember, you can catch us every Monday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/2pennygames, at 2pennygames, or mainstream podcast services of your choice. Remember, links are in the description for our Twitch, for our TikTok, for our Twitter, and our individual Twitters as well. So make sure to follow all of those to get the most recent content and updates in terms of game news, reviews, and opinions and hot takes. Oh boy, do we got some hot takes coming, ladies and gentlemen. Just you wait. Because next week, we have our Final Fantasy 16 review coming. Connor will be taking the lead on that. Thank you so much, Connor, for spending the time on that. And then next week will be our Game Club review of Yakuza 0. Very excited to jump into that. We've all been playing that throughout the month, and we've got some opinions. Let me tell you what. They're probably positive because it's a good game. Spoilers.
Hey, spoilers.
Spoilers.
Come on, man.
But you're going to have to just wait and see for all of that. Make sure to like, subscribe, share it with a friend. But until next time, have a great time. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
See you later.